You know, when we talk about AI, it feels like we're always bouncing between these wild utopian fantasies and, these really scary dystopian fears. But Neil Lawrence's book, The Atomic Human, does something pretty rare. It gives us a grounded scientific look at what actually makes us unique. He takes us on this amazing evolutionary and philosophical journey to answer what sounds like a really simple question. What makes human intelligence fundamentally different from artificial intelligence? And his answer? Well, it unfolds across a whole series of chapters that dive into things like constraints, embodiment, our evolution, data, meaning, and even ethics. What you get in the end is this incredible portrait of humanity that isn't really threatened by AI, but is actually illuminated by it. All right, so to really unpack all this, we're going to journey through 6 key ideas from the book. First, we'll deconstruct the whole myth of machine minds. Then, we'll trace our own evolutionary blueprint and see how it stacks up against AI's world of data. After that, we'll look at how these two forms of intelligence are so different, celebrate what makes being human so powerful, and then we'll wrap it all up with a final reflection. Okay, so first up, Lawrence tackles one of the biggest misconceptions floating around about AI. He just starts by completely dismantling this really seductive but totally false idea that AI systems have anything we'd recognize as a mind. He argues that, look, so much of how we talk about AI is shaped by this thing called anthropomorphism. It's our natural tendency to project human qualities onto things that aren't human. So when an AI model spits out some fluent text or recognizes a picture, our gut instinct is to think, oh, it understands. But Lawrence is really clear here. He says that's just a fundamental category error. And this really gets to the core of the whole difference, right? AI systems are just incredible at statistical pattern recognition. But that's not the same as genuine comprehension. They don't have intentions, they don't have desires, they don't live in a world, they just process inputs from a world. So, to contrast this, he introduces this great metaphor of the atomic human. He says we are beings defined by our boundaries, our embodiment, and our constraints. See, we're not these infinitely scalable computer systems. We're organisms shaped by evolution, scarcity, and the need to survive. And this really sets the stage for the book's central argument. AI is powerful because it's not like us, and we're unique because we're not like it. Okay, so that idea of human constraints, it leads us right into our next big point, our evolutionary blueprint. Lawrence makes this fascinating argument that human intelligence didn't just pop up in a world of abundance. No, it emerged from scarcity. He actually dives deep into evolutionary biology to show how our brain is this incredible masterpiece of compromise. I mean, think about it. The brain uses up a huge chunk of our body's energy. So evolution had to play a balancing act. It had to optimize for efficiency, not just raw power. Our memory, our perception, how we reason, all of it evolved under these super tight resource budgets. And this pressure, this scarcity, it forced our brains to develop some incredibly efficient tools. We're talking about mental shortcuts or heuristics, using abstractions to make complex things simple, and selective attention to focus our limited brain power where it's needed most. And this is a key takeaway Lawrence makes. These aren't bugs in our system, they are features. Now, AI, it's the complete opposite. It's built in a world of computational abundance. I mean, massive data sets, enormous compute power, practically infinite storage. And all that abundance lets AI just brute force patterns in a way we never could. But, and this is a big but, it also means AI totally lacks the evolutionary pressures that made our brains what they are. So Lawrence's point here is subtle, but so profound. Our intelligence is efficient, adaptive, and embodied. AI's is expansive, statistical, and disembodied. All right, so that brings us to AI's world of data. And this part really forces you to question your assumptions. We have this tendency to treat data like a natural resource, like oil or gold just sitting there waiting to be mined. But Lawrence, he pushes back on that idea. And he pushes back hard. His core point is this: data is constructed, not discovered. Think about it. We humans decide what to measure. We decide how to label it. We decide what's relevant and what gets left out. What that means is that every AI system is built on this scaffolding that we created, and they inherit everything that comes with it, our assumptions, our biases, and all of our blind spots. So Lawrence emphasizes that data is always going to be incomplete, it's always contextual, and it's always loaded with our values. An AI system trained on that kind of data, It can't magically rise above those limitations. In fact, it usually just amplifies them. So this whole chapter really reframes AI. It's not some autonomous intelligence. It's more like a mirror reflecting our own human choices that are often invisible and we rarely stop to examine. So if AI is built on this world of data that we curated, how does it actually understand any of it? Well, Lawrence uses this really powerful metaphor, the idea of a map, to explain the huge difference between true meaning and simple mimicry. You've probably heard the saying, a map is not the territory. Well, in the same way, a model is not the world. We humans get this intuitively, right? We know our mental models are just approximations. When they don't work, we revise them. We figure out what things mean through real experience. But AI systems, they are stuck. They operate strictly within the lines of their models. They literally don't know what they don't know. So Lawrence argues that real meaning comes from this interplay between our models and our lived experience. We are constantly updating our internal maps by actually interacting with the world. AI systems just don't have that feedback loop. They're like these frozen snapshots of statistical relationships. And once you get that, you start to understand why AI lacks real semantic grounding, why it has no intentionality or contextual awareness. It can mimic meaning, but it can't actually create it. Just think about how we process information versus how an AI does. When we compress information, it's interpretive. It's driven by our values. We create stories, we use metaphors. AI's compression? It's totally mechanical and completely context blind. It is a fundamental qualitative difference between human meaning-making and just machine pattern recognition. And that idea of lived experience brings us to something that's so crucial but often gets overlooked, our physical bodies. Lawrence argues that you just can't separate human intelligence from our embodiment. I mean, it makes sense, right? Our senses totally shape how we perceive things. Our emotions influence our decisions. The way we physically interact with the world is what grounds our understanding. Our needs, our vulnerabilities, that's what creates motivation. Lawrence pulls from cognitive science here to argue that intelligence isn't just about computation, it's about situated experience. AI systems, on the other hand, don't have bodies. They don't experience consequences, they don't feel hunger or pain or desire, they don't live in a physical world. And because they're missing that embodiment, they're missing the very foundation from which human meaning grows. Lawrence's conclusion here couldn't be clearer. Embodiment isn't just an optional extra for human intelligence, it is absolutely foundational. And this whole idea of embodiment, it flows right into our social lives. So why are we so different from AI socially? Well, it's because our intelligence evolved in groups. It was shaped by cooperation and empathy. An AI can simulate social behavior, sure, but it can't actually participate in our social reality. It has no vulnerability, no skin in the game, and because of that, it has no real basis for trust or moral responsibility. It can mimic the surface, but it just can't get to the depth. Ultimately, this just reframes your entire perspective on human nature. Lawrence gives us this powerful celebration of what we might call our imperfections, our inconsistencies, our emotions, our biases. He says these aren't flaws that need to be engineered away. They are the very sources of our creativity, our diversity, our resilience, and our empathy. AI systems, which are optimized for pure consistency and efficiency, they run the risk of imposing these super narrow definitions of what's correct. So Lawrence argues that any ethical framework for AI has to embrace human messiness, not try to suppress it. So where does all this leave us? Well, our final reflection is going to bring all these threads together, and we're going to come back to that core idea of the atomic human. We are atomic humans because we are bounded, embodied, constrained, vulnerable, and deeply embedded in our societies. And it's these very constraints that give rise to meaning, to agency, and to moral responsibility. AI systems are just tools. Incredibly powerful, transformative tools for sure, but they are fundamentally different from us. And Lawrence's big point is that the future shouldn't be about competing with AI. It should be about figuring out how to leverage AI to enhance our own human potential. So if there's one single thing to take away from all this, it's that The Atomic Human isn't really a book about what AI can do. It's a book about what makes us unique. Lawrence leaves us with a message that's both really reassuring and at the same time a bit of a challenge. AI isn't going to replace humanity, but it is absolutely going to force us to understand ourselves more deeply.